Welcome, everyone. It's really great to have a chance to speak with you all today. I want to say thank you to the Chamber for setting up this webinar and really everything that they do. As Christine mentioned, my name is Genevieve Coates. I'm the owner and principal consultant at Generate Creative Consulting. Prior to launching my own company, I've actually worked at Salesforce and Radian6 and gaining a lot of experience across different departments there, but of course strongly backed with social, email, and digital marketing. And that's actually what we're going to take a look at today is the world of email marketing. So we'll actually be going over a little bit of the history of email and email marketing. We'll talk specifically about what is email marketing. We'll touch on the legal considerations that you need to be aware of for email marketing. We'll also look at some of the email marketing software that's available to you, and also take a quick look at some of the design options you might want to consider. And finally, of course, we'll look at some use cases for using email marketing and some time at the end for question and answer. So let's get started. Very first thing is the history. So first off, let's take a look at how email in general started. And it actually started probably a little bit further back than you would have thought. As early as the 1960s, including in 1965 with MIT, and they had a system there called Compatible Time Sharing System, which basically meant they could share and send messages as long as people were logged into the same system or server. So it was very much based on your physical location. In 1971, however, on the ARPANET, the Advanced Research Projects Agency Network, a programmer named Ray Tomlinson that you can see there on the screen kind of changed things a little bit and sent the first message across different networks. So a network, an email that wasn't dependent on people being logged into the same servers. Now, it wasn't seen as such a big deal. People weren't really sure what to do with it, but slowly people realized how big a deal it was. In the 1980s, we continued to see those inter-office elements of being able to send emails, again, just across the same systems and servers. But the game really changed when it came to the 1990s, especially after 1991 when the Internet really came out into the forefront and email became a standard for communication really quickly. Nowadays, it's estimated that we send about 205 billion emails globally every single day, and that an average office worker will receive about 121 emails per day. So that's great on the side of email, but where did we get started in the world of email marketing? Well, again, when we look at email marketing, we go back to that ARPANET. And this is about 7 years after that first email was sent by Ray Tomlinson, and we have this guy, Gary Thork, who is the marketing manager of Digital Equipment Corp. And Gary actually sent a mass message. You can see the text on the screen of what he sent, inviting people to come and see their products at different open house type settings. And to those 400 users, it was completely a new experience. They'd never received it before, and they really weren't sure what to do with it. And some of them actually weren't that happy about it because it really didn't pertain to them in all cases. And that's why Gary also has the nickname as the father of spam. So he's the one who kind of started all this of being able to use email for a marketing purpose. And as we can see, you know, from sending that email to those 400 users, DEC actually made about 13 million worth of sales just from that one single email communication. So it obviously is a viable choice for marketing efforts. But when we're talking really about email marketing, what are we actually talking about? Is it just sending an email message? Well, no, not quite. And the way to think about it is into these three categories. So the very first one we have is relationship. And this means that you have a personal relationship with this person. Maybe they're a family member or a friend. They might be somebody you've done business with, but perhaps you're a little more casual with them and you're doing that back and forth one-to-one communication that's generally considered not for commercial purposes. In most instances, if they're a close family member or friend, even if you do send them a commercial message, your relationship with them will override the commercial nature of it. Then we have transactional. So transactional is when you're interacting with a customer, but that customer interaction is either initiated by the customer or you're providing them very necessary information like customer support, or you're sending them a receipt from something they've just purchased. So both relationship and transactional really aren't true email marketing in its mass format. The last one we have, though, is, and that's what we call a commercial message. And a commercial message really comes down to that purpose. And the purpose is for promotion, sales, or another commercial offer. It's really thinking about sending those emails with the goal of being an advertisement for your company. The other key important part there with commercial messages is you're really the one deciding when to send those out. You're initiating those. It's not like you're responding to your customer based on something that they've expressed as a need. So with that, and with all those types of communications that we have with customers, we obviously understand as businesses that some of those have legal considerations. We have to adhere to certain guidelines when we're providing information and make sure we're on the right side of it. So let's take a look at those legal considerations you need to have when it comes to email marketing. Well, first up, what are the things you need to know? One of the most important things you need to know is you need to be aware of any of the guidelines in any countries that you're sending emails to, because that's really where it gets governed. And now Canada, with its guidelines, adds to the United States with theirs, and Europe has guidelines as well as many other countries in the world. So really, really make sure that you're taking a look at those countries' guidelines to be aware of what you need to adhere to. And actually, these guidelines have been around for a while in some countries. So it started as early as 1998 in the United States when they updated their Data Protection Act to include the necessity of having an opt-out option on all emails you sent to people. And then in 2003 when they launched their CAN-SPAM laws. And that's really what you need to refer to now in the United States is those CAN-SPAM laws. Now, in Canada, we really didn't have some direct, explicit laws around this until 2014 when the CASL guidelines were launched. Those guidelines is what we'll take a look at today, and it's really important to be aware of them for any of the possible penalties that you could face by not following them. So, for the Canadian guidelines, let's talk about what you need for them. There's three major things that you need for the Canadian guidelines. The very first one is identification. So you have to have all of the information that you see listed on the screen identified in your email and clearly visible for the recipient. So you can't bury it in the email. You need to have it in a fairly standard spot. That's typically in the footer of the message. Also keep in mind that if you're sending on behalf of someone, like you're a marketing agency sending on behalf of your client, you need to include both of that information so that the recipient can clearly identify where that message is coming from, not just from yourself, the agency, but the client as well. The other thing that you need to keep in mind is that address has to be valid for a minimum of 60 days after the email is sent. So if you're switching offices, make sure that you're including your new physical location in any emails you send. For small businesses, if you work out of your home and you don't want to include that personal address within an email or all the emails you send, you can use a P.O. box during this situation, but it has to be listed as an official business address. So that has to be included as one of your official business mailing address if you're going to include it. The second piece of information that you need to include in the CASL guidelines is the option to unsubscribe or opt out of your messages. And this just really allows the recipient to say, I don't want to receive any of those commercial messages from you anymore. This can be a link if you're using an email software platform, and we'll take a look at why those help in a little bit, or a process of how you opt out of it if it's sending stop to a certain email address or things like that. It has to be included in every single email you sent, and you have to take that action in 10 days or less. So once somebody has asked for you to stop emailing them, you have to action in 10 days or less, and you also cannot charge the recipient for that action. So you can't say, sure, I'll unsubscribe you if you pay me $5. It can't work that way. It has to be a free of charge option. The last thing and the final piece that you really need to include is having consent. And in the world of email marketing, there's actually two layers of consent, so let's take a look at those. There is implied and express. Now, this is where the biggest changes have happened with the new laws that went in place in 2014 and probably will have the most impact to what you do on a daily basis, so we're going to spend some time here. Implied consent means that you've received that person's email through either an existing business relationship, so they're already a customer, or maybe it's through a non-business relationship, like you manage a club or a volunteer organization that they're a part of, or maybe their email was just published online and that's how you got a hold of it. What that implied consent is it means you have their email, but they haven't specifically told you that they want to receive commercial messages from you. It's typically also limited to 2 years from the start of the relationship. So from the time you receive their email or start emailing back and forth with them, that typically it means that you have 2 years to be sending them messages. Now, express consent is really what we need to have going forward with the way that the laws are written. And express consent means that somebody has expressly told you in writing or verbally that you have the ability to send them commercial messages. They say, sure, I'd love to see those offer and promotions, or they opt in by clicking a checkbox on your sign-up form. Now, express consent isn't time limited, so it doesn't disappear. The only way that it's ended is if they do unsubscribe from your mailing list, but you are responsible for saving all of those records of how you received that express consent. So if somebody told you at a meeting, you need to make sure you note that, or if somebody is opting in from a mailing list from your website, you need to keep a record of that as well. Again, that's another piece that will really help if you have an email marketing software, so we'll talk about that when we look at those providers also. So generally, this is the way it breaks down. We are currently in what's known as a transition period from July 2014, when the laws were first put in place, until November 2017, when the penalties are really going to come into play. In this transition period, it's meant to give businesses the ability to get comfortable with the way that the new laws apply to how they send emails, and so that they can move towards that express consent. So if you have any new relationships, if you get any new emails after July 2014, you have to have express consent for those. You need to have that record. By November 2017, you have to have express consent for all relationships, so your pre-existing and any new ones that you build. And between those dates, this transition period that we're in, you've got to start to work to obtain that express consent with your existing relationships. So making sure that people are aware you will be sending them commercial messages. And that's really, really important, and it's really key because of the penalties. So this is how the liability is written, and it is actually per violation up to a maximum amount for an individual of $1 million and $10 million for a business. And that's quite a bit of money for sending some emails, so make sure that you're clear on how that impacts you. If you want an example, there's actually a website here that has all the information, addconnectionsettlements.com, and what this is what LinkedIn is facing right now. They're actually trying to settle this for about $13 million, and it was really that difference between implied and express consent. They received express consent to send your contacts, so your contacts through your LinkedIn account, one email, and they didn't receive express consent to continue to send an email to those contacts over the months, so once every month, basically. So it's the difference between, again, that express and implied consent. So at the end of the day, make sure you have that express consent. Now, before we go any further, I'll just really mention and stress here that those are the highlights of what the guidelines are. If you're going to be doing email marketing, make sure that you review the sites, you review the legal information of where you're sending emails to, so the countries you're sending to, and you really understand that your process fits within that, just to protect yourself and so you don't have to worry about any of these penalties or fines. One of the big things, again, like I mentioned, that will help in keeping you on the right side of these legal considerations is the email marketing software. So the email marketing software is designed to really help in these situations. It helps with some of the functionality, and it also helps with some of the design side of things. So some of the key benefits, well, you can create lists of contacts, so it can serve as a place to start building out who you can actually send to. So it can integrate to your current email providers and tons of different CRMs, so your relation management systems. It'll also do the updates for you, so you can do website integrations like sign-up forms or share sign-up form through social media, and it will do those unsubscribes. So as people sign up, it will add them to your list, and as people unsubscribe, it will automatically do it for you, so you're within that 10 days no matter what. There's also things like the design options are usually a little bit better than what you get in just your regular inbox, and the scheduling options for not having to be awake at 8 a.m. to send out that email. You can schedule it to send at certain times, and also the reporting and tracking features that you just wouldn't get if you were sending from your regular inbox. Those are all the key benefits, and the main benefits that every software provider will offer. These are the core things that every email marketing software provider has within their system. systems. Now, when it comes to choosing a provider, the important thing is to make sure that beyond the core benefits, it's fitting your particular use case and the scale of your business. And there's a few different providers that I've listed here on the screen. So if you're a small business and you're just looking to get started into email marketing, some ones to take a look at would be MailChimp and Benchmark. So they both provide free accounts up to 2,000 contacts. So you can email and host up to 2,000 contacts within your accounts before you move into their paid model. And it's a really great option from that perspective. They also have scaled models that do allow for small to medium-sized businesses to have some of the same functionality. But one thing here when you're looking at an email provider is make sure that you're not choosing an option that's going to be too small or too limited for you in, say, 2 to 3 years' time. As with any software that you purchase and pay for, once you have your lists and your contacts and all of your tracking information loaded into these email providers, switching to another one is going to be time-consuming, and you may also lose some of that ability to track that data over time. So make sure that your provider that you choose can scale with you at least for a few years before you make an upgrade. Beyond those small business providers, if we're moving to the middle range, if you're maybe a little bit of a bigger service or you're looking for some added functionality, we have providers like GetResponse and Constant Contact. And that's basically what you get when you move up in range in email providers, is either more contacts, more space, more emails you can send, or more features. So for example, with GetResponse, you have more pre-designed templates you can use, so about 500 of them. And in Constant Contact, you have more integrations like event registration, forums, and surveys built right into the emails you send. With those paid solutions, you also usually get a certain level of customer support, which you might not get in the free model. So in the free models, you may be more directed to help portals or email support, where once you're paying for a service, you typically will then have phone support and additional resources for you. If you are on the other end of the scale from small business, so say you're an enterprise-level company, or you're doing an e-commerce site, or you're looking for a really integrated marketing platform, you may want to look at providers like HubSpot, Sendinblue, or the Salesforce Marketing Cloud. All of those integrate a lot of different functionalities. HubSpots can integrate with websites and content creation. Sendinblue is actually great for e-commerce sites. They can do text messages and transactional messages. And Salesforce Marketing Cloud actually integrates with the Salesforce CRM and also the social side of the Salesforce Marketing Cloud. And really that's what you get at those enterprise levels. The enterprise level is more looking at a total marketing solution to fit all of your needs. Again, the best advice here is use the trial and free periods that you're receiving with these providers. They pretty much all offer a free trial period or a certain level of access that you don't have to pay for. Get in there and try them and make sure that they fit your use case and the functionalities that you're looking for. Since it is something that you're going to be working with quite readily for a while, make sure it's going to fit. And again, keep in mind that scale that you're going to be able to use this for a few years. The other thing that the email marketing providers give to you is the design aspect. So design within email marketing software is usually a little bit like drag and drop. So it's pre-designed templates that you can drag and drop images and text into. And let's take a minute and look at those sections of an email. So this is actually a template, and if you're familiar, this is a view from MailChimp. And it's similar to what you'd find in other providers. Is usually when you choose a template, the layout is already predefined, and it's your ability to be able to drag and drop information into it. The preview section at the top is really useful when you're reaching people who read most of their emails through a mobile device or webmail clients like Gmail, and this is what's going to show beyond the subject line. So you'll see a little preview extra of information. So it's where you can list additional information that might be incentive to get the person to open that email up, make it pop out a little bit more. The header image, that is a great section for either your branding, so you keep that consistent branding that people get used to, or if you have some sales and discounts that you really want to jump out at people right as they open the email, that's perfect for that header image section. Now, the body of the email, that's really where it can have some really big variations depending on your use case and depending on your brand style and format that you like to use. You can put in text boxes, you can put in images, you can embed videos, you can put in forms in some of the platforms we looked at. You can do a lot within that content section. The really important thing there is to make sure that you are using it to its full advantage, but not overwhelming people, because keep in mind those stats that we took a look at, everyone receives on average about 121 emails a day, so you want to make sure that your email is getting read and they're just not getting overwhelmed by it. Then we have the footer section where we have some really great, more administrative type information like our social links, so to our Twitter and our Facebook and our website, as well as, if you'll notice, a little line that says our mailing address is, and some code underneath. So that's actually where email marketing software, again, will keep you on the right side of the legal considerations, and it will pull from your account information what that mailing address is and make sure that that is on every single email that you send. So again, it keeps that legal consideration in view for you. The other thing that it does in that section for the legal consideration is your unsubscribe link. So we can see where we can unsubscribe from this list, which again is one of those important things of the legal consideration and that whole consent process. Once a user unsubscribes from your list, again, the record keeping of email software is really important because it will keep that record for you, and remember, you are responsible for having records of when you received express consent and when someone unsubscribed from your list, so when you lost that ability. Now, a few tips when it comes to email marketing software design and designing your emails. Stay consistent. Stay consistent with your branding and with the tone you typically use for any of your other marketing material that you create, whether it's your website or your social side of things. Also stay consistent with your branding and your colors that you're using within the email. Limit your color and your font. So you don't need to have 10 different colors and 5 different styles of fonts within an email to make it attract the attention. Sometimes having one pop of color can really draw in somebody's eye into your email. And that ties into using white space. So white space is when you use white space to direct people's eyes down to a particular area, so leaving empty spaces around really important text that makes that piece stand right out for you. That's a really great way in emails to draw the user's eye down the screen to maybe a middle section with important information or a date that something expires, really key point in design. Using images. We all know that a picture says 1,000 words, so using an image to get to your point can oftentimes solve the issue of having too much text within an email, and it ties into the next tip, which is get to the point quickly and clearly. We just saw in that template that a lot of the bottom section of emails nowadays is administrative information. It's where we put our addresses, it's where we put our unsubscribe links, so people are getting familiar with that. Again, that consistency of that's where that information goes. You wouldn't want to put the most important information that you're trying to get across in your email into that bottom section because it might get overlooked. Put it near the top, put it near the middle, and use white space to make it stand out, but make sure that you're getting to your point quickly and clearly when you're sending out those emails. A couple other things. Always have someone read your emails just to make sure that the text is right, you don't have spelling mistakes, and that it really gets to the point of what you're trying to do with that email. Use the preview and send test emails options. So all of the providers will have this, the ability to preview what an email will look like on a desktop device or a mobile device, or even send test emails to your own email accounts that you can share with others to take a look at. It's a really great way to make sure that the email is looking like you intend it to. Check your links. Check your links is a key part of sending those test emails. So there are some software that will actually wrap your links so that when you send them, if there's a mistake, you can change it in the software and it will continue to work. That is an exception, not the rule. Most softwares, when you send out a link, if it's a bad link, then that means everyone on your email list got a bad link, and the only way you could correct it would be sending another message, a correction email. That's really not great to do, sending double emails to people, because it's going to make them probably want to unsubscribe from your list. So always check your links. Use that test email as an opportunity to make sure your links are working. and make sure it's mobile friendly. 50% of all the browsing that we do, including looking at our emails, is done on mobile devices. So use those previews, look at your test email on your mobile device, but make sure it's just as clear, just as focused when you're using a mobile device. These are a few examples we'll take a look at just to give you an idea of some of what's possible with email marketing design. This first one is for an eyeglass supplier, and they've used a really great example of color done properly. So see that they're not using a lot of styles of font, but they're using different sizes of font to make that date pop out, and they're using the color to really bring the user down the page. They've also used great use of white space here to make those buttons in the middle stand out. The header image is consistent because it's their brand information, and their footer has all their necessary administrative information. Another example, and this is a chance to highlight a really good site that might be useful for you, which is Canva. And Canva.com, that's the URL you can visit, is an online graphic design software, and it can really help you to build even some quick email headers or headers for your social marketing, and it's free to use. They have a business option, but it's a great resource. In an email that they've sent, they've actually made it very simple. They have the body of the email, they have their footer with their unsubscribe and other information, and they've also gone ahead and used lots of use of white space to bring your eye into those main images, those layout images. Now, they could have made those layout images, the card, social media, poster, and presentation, quite a bit larger, but of course, they've looked at this on mobile devices as well as within their web browsers and found one that kind of draws your eye across that layout design. So it's a great use of not overdoing the use of images or color, but really pulling you into it. If you want to take a look at some other email examples, this is a really great website, and it is called reallygoodemails.com. It is sponsored by MailChimp, so one of those email providers that we took a look at. But basically what people do is they submit emails to this forum, and the best ones get posted online. So you can look at some big brands. You can see Fitbit on the screen there, and what they're doing within their email marketing, get some ideas for what might work for you, some ideas for different layouts or things you could include, and it's a really great place to just brainstorm. So reallygoodemails.com. One of the biggest things that's going to dictate the legal considerations as well as how you're designing your emails and what email provider that you're going to choose is actually the use cases. So how are you actually using email marketing within your business? So let's take a look at 4 big use cases that are typically used for email marketing. Very first one is lead generation. So using it to gather more people that you might be able to sell your product or services to. This is eMarketer. This is their sign-up form for their newsletter. And their newsletter doesn't have a lot of commercial side of things to it. It actually gives you the ability here to view today's issue, so see an example of it. Has tons of content like stats on digital marketing or stats on, how many people are browsing on mobile devices versus desktop. So something that's really useful for marketers. They actually have their sign-up form right beside it for this newsletter, and they're pulling in your business emails. So by doing that, what they're doing is they're excluding emails like Gmail, Live.com, Yahoo.com, those ones that are more of a personal nature. So those ones won't work here. And by doing that and having content that's really focused at marketing audiences that are of a business nature, they're giving themselves a really great lead funnel because who they sell their product and services to are marketers. That is their main target audience. They've also done something else really interesting here, and this is great if you're a marketing agency to learn from. So they have a second checkbox at the bottom. So your express consent is actually triggered by clicking the Sign Me Up button. The checkbox they have underneath is for their partnership offers. So they actually send emails on behalf of other people. And by checking that checkbox, what you're saying is, I give you permission to send me emails from not just eMarketer, but other people that you send on behalf of. So if you're a marketing agency or you send emails on behalf of other people, that's a great way to do it. So this is a really good example of lead generation that incorporates a newsletter, so email marketing, a sign-up form, again, that's an integration from your email marketing provider, and also the ability to send emails on behalf of other people. The next one we have is a customer journey or sales nurturing. So this is an email I actually got from Duolingo, and Duolingo is actually an app where you can learn other languages. And they know, as the provider of the app, that you need to practice your language every day. So I would receive this saying, hey, you haven't practiced your German today. What's going on? I also would receive an app notification telling me similar information. Now, if I went ahead and went into the app and started using it and doing my lessons, then I'd stop receiving the notifications. If I don't, then they may send me more notifications. So send me more notifications to try and get me back into the app. This is a really great thing for if you base your business around either user adoption or returned sales or even monthly subscriptions. It's a really, really great way to nurture along the sales process. An example would be, say that you sell cars, and you know at 6 months is when you typically need to have somebody bring their car in for a service appointment. Well, you could send them an email at month 5 and say, hey, reminder, bring in your car in month 6 for your service appointment. And if they forget, then you could send them a reminder in month 7 and say, hey, you've really forgotten about your service appointment, really think you should bring it in for us. So it's a great way, again, to keep in front of people, to make sure that they're adopting your product and also that they're coming back for your service and upgrades. The next one we have is brand awareness. So brand awareness, and this is a little shameless plug, this is the Millennial Dream. It's a project that I'm personally connected to that we're showing throughout the Maritimes, a little documentary film project and discussion. And really, these emails that we've been sending out on a weekly basis through a newsletter are more about just bringing awareness of a brand. Now, a really key thing here when it comes to the legal consideration is even this type of email requires consent. So you need to have express consent, even if you're sending out an email that doesn't have a direct commercial purpose or an offer or a sale within it. You still need that consent. And if you've guessed, nonprofit organizations, even though they might not have a direct commercial purpose, still need to have that level of express consent when sending emails. Brand awareness emails are great because a lot of people are more likely to share those and encourage other people to sign up for them because generally they have information that are directed at a particular audience. Another example would be our great Fredericton Chamber of Commerce emails, the newsletters that we receive. That's another example of brand awareness. Their main purpose is to give the reader information, but also make sure that you're aware of what's happening with that brand, so later on, maybe you'll engage with them for a purchase from a commercial perspective. The last example that we have is customer feedback. So this is a form I received after upgrading my phone last year from Rogers, and basically this still counts as email marketing. Even though we do have that level of transactional feel to it where they're sending it to me because of something I did with an upgrade, it's not necessary for me. So I didn't request this. This isn't necessary information. It's not a receipt. It doesn't include any necessary account information. It's more initiated from their side. So it does count as email marketing. But it is a really great use case. If you're trying to get feedback from your audience, this is a perfect way to do it, is sending through emails requesting their feedbacks through surveys. There are even some providers where you can actually build surveys directly into the emails you send, so they don't have to go to another website. The survey appears right in the email. If you're interested in that, make sure when you're looking at providers, you check out that functionality. And another great thing I'll point out here with this is that they've actually offered an incentive within it saying, hey, if you fill out this email, we'll enter you for a draw for a Visa gift card. And that's also a great way to get people to engage with you, to give you that feedback, is by making it worth their time or worth their effort to kind of give you that feedback overall. So customer feedback, that's the last use case that we have there. So that was a really quick overview of what's possible with email marketing. Really, last things that I would suggest is, again, if it's something you're interested in doing with your business or something that you're looking to expand on, make sure that you're taking a look at those legal guidelines that have just come up. Make sure you understand those fully. Take your time with choosing your software provider. Even look at your use cases before you look at the providers to make sure they're going to have the features and functionalities that you need, and make sure they're going to scale with you. So make sure that it's still going to work 2-3 years from now. don't rush through any of your design. Make sure you have that consistency within your design, and test. Send test emails to yourselves, practice with that information, and you'll have tons of success with it. If you ever need any help with this, if you ever need any help, feel free to send questions through. And thank you so much today for everybody being here, and also to the Chamber for hosting this event.